In this video, we'll show you how to build a set of DIY walnut coasters with decorative inlays from Osborne. This is a great project for a simple gift for someone. Stay tuned and we'll be right back. For this project, we're using the Walnut true stock lumber from Osborne as the main material for these coasters. If you're looking for high quality lumber for your next woodworking project, check out the links in the description below. I'll start by planing the lumber down to the final thickness of the coasters, which is roughly ½ inch. After that, I chose to sand the lumber to 150 grit just to make it easier once we cut our pieces down. Since the true stock lumber is right at 4 inches wide, I'm going to cut it to a 4-inch length as well to make a perfect square. If you're using the 48-inch true stock lumber, you can get about 11 coasters out of one piece of lumber. This makes it a great budget-friendly project to get started with woodworking and can really be customized to your preferences. Once the coasters are cut to size, I wanted to add a round over to the top and bottom edges just to soften the overall look. For these coasters, I wanted to add some detail, so I chose Osborne's wooden inlay strips to add a little bit of a decorative design to the top. A router is the easiest way to install these inlay strips into your project. I chose a router bit that is the same width as my inlay strip and set the depth of my router table to be 1/32 of an inch, which is the thickness of all of our inlay strips. If you're interested in a more in-depth tutorial on installing these wooden inlay strips, you can check out the video above. Now that we've created the channel for our inlays, we need to cut them to length and do a little bit of touch-up sanding to make sure they fit properly. I'll use a razor blade to cut the longest inlay strip, and I can use that as a template for the rest of my coasters. You can also use a sharp chisel to cut the inlays to length depending on the tools you have available. If your inlay strips aren't fitting just right into the channel, you can use a high grit sandpaper to lightly sand the edges to make for a perfect fit. Once our longer piece has been cut out, we can test the fit and go ahead and measure for the shorter pieces on each of our coasters. This is going to make a nice cross design for our coasters, but you can use these inlay strips in any way you prefer, so this is your chance to really get creative. To install the inlay strip, simply add a little bit of glue to the channel, then lay the inlays in, making sure they seat properly. Make sure to use a light amount of glue for this installation to avoid any excess squeeze out. Once your inlay strips are installed, you can use a rag to remove any excess glue from the top surface. Then we can add some weight to the top side of the coasters and allow them to dry. While our inlays are drying, we can work on the holder for our coasters, which will be made from some scrap walnut as well. I planed this lumber down to be slightly thinner than our coasters and cut the base to be just an 1/8 inch over to make sure the coasters can be removed from the stand easily. For our stand, I chose to use 2 mitered corners that will retain the coasters inside the stand. This design can be customized to fit your preferences or to match your coasters, so keep that in mind when curating your base. Next, I can use some painter's tape to glue up the 2 mitered corners since these are very small pieces. This will allow for plenty of clamping pressure while the glue dries. We can add a little glue to both miters and fold them together for a perfect seam. While our stands are drying, we can sand the coasters to 220 grit and get them ready for a proper finishing using a polyurethane clear coat. The inlays can be sanded slightly on the top surface, but be sure not to over sand as you can burn through and show the wood underneath. Next, we can finish assembling the stand by adding the mitered corners that we created earlier. To install these, you can use some wood glue around the bottom edge of the corners and use a band clamp to keep clamping pressure against the base. Next, we can remove the dust from the surface of the coasters and apply a polyurethane finish for proper protection. It's important to choose a finish for your project that is water resistant in order to protect the wood as much as possible. If you're using a water-based polyurethane, it's important to sand the surface lightly before applying the final coat, as the water will raise the grain on the wood. This will give us a smooth, even finish on the final coat and offer great protection against moisture. Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you're interested in the decorative wooden inlays from Osborne or the 4x1 True Stock, you can check out the links below. As always, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment, and we'll see you next time in the Builder Studio.